The sharp midday sun burned down on the endless ribbon of highway, and somewhere between the blinding glare of chrome and the trembling heat of asphalt, a terrified young girl raised her bound hands just enough for the passing bikers to notice a desperate flicker of movement from the dust-covered window of a dark van, her wide eyes holding the silent scream of someone who knew this was her only chance before being swallowed forever. If this hook already stirred something inside you, and you truly believe in kindness and second chances, show your support by liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to the channel Light of Kindness, because your engagement helps stories like this reach more hearts in need of hope. Beneath that fierce blue sky stood Safrina Hale, barely 17, her life once painted with ordinary dreams of bright college halls and lazy afternoon laughter, now ripped into chaos after a roadside stop turned into a nightmare. Hours had dragged by as the vehicle tore through open countryside, the world outside a blur of trees and concrete, until fate aligned with a rumbling convoy of bikers riding through the daylight in formation, engines echoing like a heartbeat across the land, led by Roland Mercer, a man known not just for his intimidating presence, but for a quiet loyalty that ran deeper than steel. The second Safrina managed to press her palms and forehead against the glass, her fingers smeared with dust and silent plea, something shifted in the air, a spark of instinct no one in that group could ignore, and without thinking twice, the riders subtly changed their pace, alert eyes narrowing as awareness settled over them like a sudden storm cloud in an otherwise bright, ordinary afternoon. Roland's life had not always been one of roaring engines and long highways, but the brotherhood he rode with, including the sharp-eyed Keziah Rourke and the steady Malik Dorian, had formed a bond that lived beyond words and rules. They had seen enough of the world's cruelty to recognize fear when it wore someone's eyes, and the sight of a young girl's face blurred behind glass was not something to be dismissed as imagination or coincidence. The bikers began to follow the van at a cautious distance, their presence a silent shield forming in the middle of a sunlit wilderness, while Safrina battled an ocean of dread inside that tight metal cage, her wrists aching and her throat raw from soundless cries she dared not release. Every bump in the road felt like another blow to her fading hope, yet when she glimpsed the determined silhouettes of the riders pacing alongside, a fragile warmth stirred in her chest, a reminder that the world still held strangers willing to care. The van swerved, the air grew tense, and the quiet afternoon suddenly carried the weight of an unspoken promise as the bikers coordinated their movement with near instinct, creating space, blocking escape routes, and summoning help through their signals, while the bright sky above bore witness to courage taking root where fear once ruled. In those powerful daylight moments, destiny no longer belonged to the ones who had taken her, but to the ones who refused to let her disappear. Safrina's mind drifted through flashes of her home, her mother's soft humming in the kitchen, the warmth of her sunlit bedroom, the soft rustle of pages as she read beneath her window, and she clung to those memories as her anchor against the darkness pressing in. Outside, the bikers maintained a relentless presence, engine steady yet controlled, tires slicing against pavement as if carving a protective line between danger and rescue. The van attempted to lose them, but every turn, every acceleration was mirrored with precision, the daylight stretching endlessly as time thickened like honey. Roland's focus never wavered, his jaw set as his eyes read every motion, every subtle shift in the road, while Keziah kept an unblinking watch on Safrina's fragile outline through the dusty glass. The sense of unity among them was not just about loyalty to each other, but an unbreakable stance against injustice, a refusal to let fear dictate the story of someone so young and undeserving of cruelty. As the van veered toward a deserted roadside clearing, the bikers formed a protective crescent, their presence a living barrier, and the tension in the air swelled until it seemed even the birds hovering above paused in silent anticipation. Safrina felt the earth shake beneath the chaos, yet somewhere within that storm she sensed a shift, a turning of the tide under the relentless sun, as if the universe itself had decided her life still held purpose. The moment control slipped from those who meant her harm, reality came rushing back with raw intensity, and as the bikers ensured her safety, Safrina collapsed onto the warm ground, the brightness of the sky blurring through tears that were no longer only of fear but of overwhelming relief. She could feel the rough comfort of gravel beneath her palms, the steady rumble of engines transforming from threat to reassurance, and the silent strength of strangers standing watch around her until authority arrived. No words were needed to understand the gravity of what had happened, only the collective breath of relief under the open daylight as life began to knit itself back together. The faces around her remained protective yet gentle, as if they carried the quiet understanding that sometimes heroes wore leather jackets and rode thunder rather than capes. Safrina's heart thundered, not from terror now, but from the realization that hope could arrive in the most unexpected forms, carried on wheels and courage. Time seemed to stretch and soften, and as medics tended to her shaking frame, she gazed upward at the sky, its brilliant blue now a symbol not of isolation, but of second chances that bloom even after the cruelest storms. Days passed, yet the echoes of that afternoon lingered in Safrina's thoughts like a sacred song she could never forget. She found ways to rebuild herself slowly, finding strength in sunlight streaming through her window, courage in the rustle of leaves, and comfort in the knowledge that humanity had not abandoned her. Roland and the others quietly returned to their roads, but their act of compassion remained etched into her spirit as the turning point that rewrote her fate. As she stood once more in the open warmth of day, breathing air that felt like freedom reborn, she realized the world was not only filled with danger, but with guardians who rose when the moment demanded it. And if this story of bravery, resilience, and unexpected kindness touched your heart in any way, we ask you now to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Light of Kindness, so more stories of hope can continue reaching those who need them most. Special request, please comment below and let us know how this story made you feel and what moments stayed with you the longest. Because in a world that often feels broken, every shared act of compassion becomes a guiding light, and every voice that believes in healing adds warmth to the silent corners still waiting to be seen.